You're sitting at home and your phone rings. The phone caller ID says it is PayPal calling you, and so you pick up. And the person on the other end of the line asks for some verification. There's been some suspicious activity on your PayPal account, and they need the 6-digit code that was just sent to your phone, or the 6-digit code from your authenticator account. Wanting to protect your assets in your PayPal account, you hand over that code. You've just foiled every protection that security professionals have tried to give you with two-factor authentication, but it's not your fault. You are being tricked. According to TechCrunch, there is an operation called Estate. When hackers get hacked, it is an interesting thing. So I want to look at this article with you and also just drill home that you should never give out your two-factor authentication codes, whether it is something that's been sent via SMS or something in one of your authenticator apps. You would only be giving those codes into the application as you are logging in. Those are not codes that would ever be given out for verification or to protect your account. Just want to drill that home. I'll probably say it again at the end of the video, but let's take a look at this article and see how the hackers got hacked. All right, let's take a look at this article. It's linked below if you want to read it yourself. It basically says, got that boomer, how cyber criminals steal one-time passcodes for SIM swap attacks and raiding bank accounts. This was published on May 13th in TechCrunch. They basically walk through the scenario I just described, where a victim gets a phone call and they are tricked into handing over their two-factor authentication code. Now, there's something with their console, got that boomer. They're obviously targeting older people who are less savvy with technology and less savvy with scams. They might also be sending phishing emails with the aim of capturing victims' passwords, but oftentimes, as we know, many people are reusing passwords. They aren't using password managers, and as such, their passwords end up in breaches because they're reusing passwords everywhere. So they've already got the password. They've already attempted to log in. They see the fact that there is a two-factor authentication code requested, and so all they need to do is get that person's telephone number and try to get that two-factor code from them. Now, this is very interesting. Since mid-2023, this operation called Estate has enabled hundreds of members to carry out thousands of automated phone calls to trick victims into entering one-time passcodes. So Estate helps attackers defeat security features which rely on one-time passcodes, either sent to a person's phone or email or generated from their device using an authenticator app. Stolen one-time passcodes can grant attackers access to the victim's bank accounts, credit cards, crypto and digital wallets, and online services. Most of the victims that they discovered were in the United States. This is where it gets interesting. Estate had a bug in it that exposed the site's back-end database, so that was not encrypted, and that database contained details of the site's founder, its members, and line-by-line logs of each attack since the site launched, including phone numbers of victims that were targeted, when, and by which member. So Vangelis Staikas, a security researcher and chief technology officer at Atropos.ai, was the one that had provided the database to TechCrunch for analysis. It gives you a look into how a one-time passcode interception operation works. So services like this offer why you might be wondering why a service like this would even exist. Now, they typically will offer these as a legitimate service for allowing security practitioners to stress test resilience to social engineering attacks. But services like this also fall in a legal gray space because they allow members to use these services for malicious cyber attacks. Let's say you are managing IT for a large organization and you want to see if the people who are using your services are resilient to a social engineering attack. You could use a service like this and send them phishing messages or send them telephone calls that trick them into giving up their two-factor authentication codes. I've worked in plenty of organizations that phished their employees, and you just don't click on the links, you report them to IT, and that's what you do in order to protect yourself. But services like this for smaller organizations that perhaps do not have the capabilities of doing their own sort of stress testing or penetration testing of their people might need a service like this. But this service actually was being used by malicious actors. Authorities have prosecuted operators of similar sites in the past. This one contained almost 93,000 attacks since Estate launched last year, targeting victims who have accounts with Amazon, Bank of America, Capital One, Chase, Coinbase, Instagram, MasterCard, PayPal, Venmo, Yahoo, and many others. So basically everyone. So some of these efforts, interestingly, were showing efforts to hijack phone numbers by carrying out SIM swap attacks. One campaign was simply titled, "You're getting SIM swapped, buddy," and also threatening to dox victims. Now, the founder of Estate is a Danish programmer in their early 20s, and they told TechCrunch in an email last week, "I do not operate the site anymore." The founder, despite efforts to conceal operations, misconfigured their server that exposed the real-world location in a data center in the Netherlands. Here we see a screenshot, and we see sort of a console basically describing what happened when these malicious calls occurred. So they show that it's calling, the call's been answered, a human's been detected, and the victim is sending the one-time password, and then there is an audio transcript there so the attacker could grab that information. Now, Estate advertised itself as able to create tailored one-time password solutions to match your needs perfectly, but as we see here, the database shows that Estate was used almost exclusively for criminality. There were no legitimate people who were using this for the way it was advertised. Now, interestingly, even though Estate had some marketing language on their website, they did try to keep a low profile by hiding their website from search engines and only bringing on new members by word of mouth. According to their website, they could only sign in if they had a referral code from an existing member, keeping the number of users low to avoid detection by upstream communication providers. And once through the door, Estate provided members with tools for searching for previously breached account passwords of their would-be victims. So basically, if they had targeted a victim like Aunt Mary, and Aunt Mary had been hacked before, they would look for Aunt Mary's previously breached account passwords, and then the only thing that the attacker would need to do was to get the two-factor authentication, the one-time code from Aunt Mary. And so those tools also allowed members to use custom-made scripts containing instructions for tricking targets into turning over those one-time passcodes. Now, according to the database, one of the biggest calling campaigns on Estate targeted older victims, Aunt Mary, under the assumption that boomers are more likely to take an unsolicited phone call than younger generations. So this campaign accounted for about 1,000 phone calls, relying on a script that kept the cybercriminal apprised of each attempted attack. So they would have things like the old F answered, flashing in the console when the victim picked up the call. Now, while Estate's marketing said that this would be used to stress test, the database itself showed that Estate's founder was aware that their clientele were largely criminal actors, and Estate promised privacy for its members. They didn't log any data. We do not require any personal information to use our services, snubbing the identity checks that upstream telecom providers and tech companies typically require before letting customers onto their networks. But as we see, it isn't true. Estate was logging every attack that its members carried out in granular detail, dating back to the site's launch in mid-2023, and the site's founder retained access to server logs that provided a real-time window into what was happening, including every call made by its members, as well as any time a member loaded a page on Estate's website. So the database is showing that it kept track of email addresses of prospective members, and one of the users said they wanted to join Estate because they recently started buying CCS, referring to credit cards, and believed Estate was more trustworthy than buying a bot from an unknown seller. So that user was later approved according to Estate's records. Also interesting, in Estate's database, it contains members' attack scripts, which reveal specific ways that attackers exploit weaknesses and how tech giants and banks implement security features like one-time passcodes for verifying customer identities. And of course, TechCrunch is not going to give up those weaknesses to us. Don't want to aid any other cyber criminals in carrying out attacks. Veteran security reporter Brian Krebs has reported on this in the past. In 2021, said these criminal operations make clear why you should never provide any information in response to an unsolicited phone call. Doesn't matter who claims to be calling. If you didn't initiate the contact, hang up. And that advice still holds true today. What do we take from this information? It just goes to show you that cyber criminals are after your assets. And your assets could be cryptocurrency, it could be money in a bank account, it could be money in PayPal, it could be your credit card information in your Amazon account. Attackers are after everything. Use two-factor authentication, but make sure you distrust anyone that calls you. Spoofing a phone call is incredibly easy. That caller ID is not something that should be trusted, and anyone on the other side of the line, no matter how professional they sound, could be an attacker looking to scam you out of everything that you have. They may be even trying to take over your cell phone. They may be posing as Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T in order for you to give up information about your cellular provider, taking over everything. At this point, maybe it's time to just not answer the phone. Call everyone back, unless it is, of course, your mom on Mother's Day. You should always call mom back. So take a look at the article down below. Does this mean that two-factor authentication is foiled? No, it just means that humans remain the weakest link in cybersecurity. You and I just need to be very aware that these types of things happen. If you want to be more aware, make sure you get on my newsletter. I have some more courses coming online very soon that will take you through some scenarios of things that happen. I just got a text message yesterday that was a little spooky in how real it looked. So I want to help you and everyone you know better defend yourself against cyber criminals. Do not give out those two-factor authentication codes over the phone. Never type it into a phone. Never put it anywhere except for into an application where you have just started a login process. Protect those two-factor codes and your passwords with your life. You should use a password manager. There are a number of them, very inexpensive, easy to use. Make sure you're using unique passwords everywhere. Also, reach out to the older people in your family. Educate them. You know, I want you to be aware of these things as they're happening, but it's up to you to connect with people who might not find this video. You could send them one of my videos to make it more clear as to what cyber criminals are up to, or just educate them yourself. I'm here to empower you to educate as many people as possible to make things just harder for cyber criminals to take our digital assets. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.